Working as a dating coach for 12 years now, it's fair to say that I've seen it all. I've worked with 40-year-old virgins and I have worked with 18-year-old Playboy superstars. But something happens when you see hundreds, literally hundreds of male-female interactions every week for years on end. You begin to see the Matrix. Okay, well, you don't see the Matrix, but you begin to see patterns. Patterns emerge everywhere. Patterns that you'd never normally see unless you were seeing hundreds and hundreds of interactions between men and women going on all of the time. And there is a very specific pattern that I've seen clustered around 26-year-old women that I think is going to be fascinating for men to hear about, and I've never spoken about until today. So let's find out what that is. I've been with my partner for 11 years now, and when I first met her, she was 20 years old, just about turning 21, and we started dating, and very early on became serious after about 6 months, and then 6 months in, she joined the company, started to become a director with me at the company and running this growing, burgeoning company that soon became super successful with me. And then when she was 26 years old, she started to have a bit of a crisis in her life because she had met me when she was 20 years old, and she got involved in a serious business at the same time, and she never really felt like she had a chance to be a crazy young woman, right? To just go out and explore the world and see what she was all about. And she started to become really aware of, the fact that she was 26 now and that she was only going to get older and that her sort of value in the world was going down. And she was having this big sort of crisis of identity, and it was having a very big toll on the relationship. And at a certain point, I said to her, I'm afraid that you need to go and sort your stuff out. This isn't going to work. We got to split up. Go. Take 6 months. Live your life. I'm going to live mine. I'm going to do what I want, see who I want, get into relationships, maybe not. Just do what you need to do. And then we'll talk again at the end of 6 months. And if you still want to be with me, and if I still want to be with you at that point, we haven't decided that's not what we want anymore, then we'll talk. And that's what we did. The same time, just after my partner and I split, one of my best friend's girlfriends turned 26. And she started to argue with him more and more, and the relationship fell into shambles because she was starting to feel like he had controlled who she was as a woman since they had been dating. Now, you were dating since she was 21. She felt like he'd been trying to control who she was, and she needed to go out and just explore the world and find out who she is as a woman, and they split up. Now, these two examples in isolation, you could say, well, you just have to be careful when you date a woman from really young. You have to let her express herself and learn who she is. Cool. You could say that. Except here's another interesting trend that I started to see. When I was going out bars and clubs a lot, especially more sort of 6-7 years ago, when I was doing this a lot more than I am now, I noticed that, I always had this curious thing where I'd meet women who had been strongly religious, but were reaching a point in their lives where they really wanted to start exploring the world more and kind of pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable given their religion. And my friends used to laugh about this because I'm probably the devil on someone's shoulder, not the angel on their other shoulder. And, meeting these women and talking to me was like turning them to the dark side, and like, oh, don't you want to explore your sexual side, your sexual nature? And through this time, I had some crazy, wacky experiences. I met a woman from Iraq who had just come here, and exactly going through this kind of crisis period, and then we ended up having threesomes together and doing all this crazy stuff. And I had all these conversion experiences with women out of religion. And what was really uncanny and became a bit of an ongoing joke was not only are you converting them, you're picking them at 26 years old to convert them. Because what was interesting was all these women were starting to have their crisis of faith or crisis of who they really were and who they wanted to be at the age of 26. And then the last few months, I've been getting into the dating pool heavily again because my partner and I are in an open relationship once again, and so I'm getting out there. And what's really fascinating as I talk to these women is all these big changes in their lives are happening at the age of 26. One woman got divorced at 26. Another one was really, until the age of 26, she decided that she only wanted to be with a man sexually if she was really heavily romantically involved with him. But then she realized that she really needed to explore herself and maybe question some of the ways that she had lived her life. And so she was going through a big change. And you just start to see all these things happening around the age of 26. And And after one conversation, finally I thought, I need to look into this more. What happens if I look at the flip side of this? What happens if I were to say, have a look at the data that I have with my clients? Because my clients that I work with for 12 years now, one of the things they must do while they're working with me is document their experiences. So after every time when guys go out and try to talk to women, they'll journal their experience. And the journaling isn't about trying to show off. The journaling is about, where did I go wrong? What happened? What went badly? What do I need to improve in myself? Why did I get rejected? What's going on? What are the bad patterns going on in my world that I need to work on, right? About who I am that's turning women off. And it's funny because once guys start to get some success and the success becomes consistent, they stop journaling, because it's not about showing off, it's about self-improvement. But anyway, what I can see is I can see the successes that guys are getting in the early, as they're working on this stuff. And I thought, what happens if I were to chart the successful times they'd gone out and picked up a girl and slept with her? The guys, because some of my clients are looking for long-term relationships, some are looking for things more casual, just the casual guys. Those guys, what are the ages? And what's the clustering of the ages of women where guys are having successful casual sex relationships? What do you think I experienced? What, given the name of this video, do you think it is that happened when I started to gather all this data together? If you guessed a bell curve distribution around the age of 26, you'd be absolutely positively freaking correct. You see this really strong bell curve, where you are far more likely. So in other words, you are, I think it was 39.8% likely, if you're going to have a casual sexual experience with a woman between the ages of 20 and 30, then there's a 39.8. It was right up, high 39s. I should have looked it up before this video. I'll put the figure up here. But basically, there was that much chance. Instead of not 10%, as you might think for ages, 10 years, between 20 and 30. No, it was almost triple that, around the age of 26. So there's a definite strong distribution there, which is fascinating as well. Now, all of this is statistically interesting enough to say, what the heck is going on with women at the age of 26? Now, there's really only two broad answers to this question. And one could be this is a genetic thing. The other could be that this is a cultural thing. And all likelihood, as it is with most complex human behaviors, it's a little bit genetic and it's a little bit cultural. So what do I think is going on? Well, the first thing to think about is that the human brain really only stops developing or finalizes its development process about 25, 26 years old. So I think it feels like that has to be related in some way, that at that point, suddenly women's brains are reaching the end of their development and evolution, and that's when a woman starts to think, well, who am I and what am I about in the world? But we don't seem to see men experiencing this at 26 years old. We seem to see men having their midlife crisis or their crisis of who they are later on in life. Why women? Why 26? Here's my theory based on, I talk to a lot of women and I tend to talk about a lot of nerdy subjects with a lot of women. This is one of them. When a woman grows up, she tends to be have a men do too, but women as well have a path set out for them. This is what your life is supposed to look like. You're supposed to get this education or not get this education, depending on your culture. You're supposed to find a guy and get married by this point because you got your body clock, and you're supposed to be nice and you're supposed to be sweet and you're supposed to this and you're supposed to that, and this is how good women behave. And there's a whole bunch of rules imposed on women, and as well as a value system, right? Like most women, the greatest value is, in many ways, the culture makes them feel like it's how they look, it's their reproductive ability, and it's all these things that the culture imposes on women, the value system. And all of that really seems to come to a head at about the age of 26. So whether it's a religion or whether it's societal values or family values or cultural values, whatever it is, these all seem to come to a head at around about that age, because lots of things happen by this point. By 26, your reproductive value, right? So your looks will start to decline. Now, I'm not trying to say that 26-year-old women aren't attractive. I'm not saying that. But now from this point, most women start to become aware that they're declining, that there is going to be a decline. This is the best it's going to get from that value. Now my value is dropping. But I still feel I have value as a woman. I must be something more than just boobs and legs, right? This starts to become the experience that women have. Or if you've been locked down, you've been focused on a single relationship with a guy, you've been married young, you've been highly religious. By 26, it feels like you've been adult long enough and you've been out in the world long enough that all of a sudden you start to question, well, other people are doing it differently to me. and other people seem happy. Other people seem to be living better lives than me. What is this all about? What do I need to change now that things are different? Now that I'm reaching the TikTok point on my body clock, now that, right, all these questions seem to come up for women around that age. And it seems like for men, this happens a lot later. And I think that's because men's value tends to peak, or our societal value often peaks when we think about our income levels, right? So our careers don't peak until 35, 40, sometimes early 40s. And that's when you tend to see men having their crisis of who they really are and what they mean in the world, because they're not reaching their crescendo until that age. And it's not until you reach the crescendo and say, well, is that all there is? Is that all I am in the world? Then we start to ask those questions. So men tend to have that crisis much later on. So if we've got this knowledge, and trust me, if you look around, if you start asking women, it'll start to be uncanny how often the big life changes happen at 26. What's the learning that you can take away from this, other than an interesting little factoid? Well, I think the first thing to take away from this is be aware of this fact. If you're going to date for long-term, serious, a woman who's under 26, I think it's something that you need to be aware of and cautious of, because odds are she's going to go through this. And because I've seen this so many times now, most breakups I see happen when she's about 26. It's pretty crazy. And so you can't change it. This is the problem. You can't speed it up and make it happen quickly. You can't stop it from happening. That would be unconscionable. Plus, she's just not going to allow you. It won't happen. I've experienced lots of guys try to stop it, including myself with my partner initially. Just not going to work. So it's unstoppable, immovable change that a woman needs to go through, and you cannot stand in the way. And usually your mere existence in her life is somewhat holding her back. So I think that if it's going to happen to you, the only thing you can do is step back and go, hey, do what I did. Just say, hey, go, do what you need to do. Let's talk again in 6 months. I feel like that's about the only thing you can do. And there's no guarantee that will work for you. If you don't want to go through that experience and you're looking for a long-term relationship, what would I suggest? I would suggest finding women who have been through the big change already. You're 27? Tell me about your life. Well, you're not going to literally say that, but you're going to learn about her life, right, up until this point. Has she been through a big life upheaval already? Somewhere about 24, 25, 26, you expect it? If yes, great. If no, not yet, be wary, at least if she's for a long-term partner. If you are in a casual relationship with a woman who is about that age and it feels like she's going through a big life upheaval, expect her to be chaotic, expect her to be unpredictable, expect her to make wild shifts in what she wants and doesn't want, expect her to maybe just drop off the map and suddenly not be interested in you anymore. That's okay. Just expect it, because she's going through this big transition in her life. And I think that if you're looking for stability, find a woman who's been through this already. That would be a really, really big one for me. I know that there's an appeal to younger women, right? There's a vibrance and an energy that younger women have, and I totally get it. But beware, for a long-term relationship, that can breed a lot of trouble later on as they go through this. So that's the advice that I have around this age. Those of you watching, I'd like to know, have you experienced this before? Like in relationships, did some of your big relationships end when the woman hit 26? Did a lot of arguments start up? Have you seen this with family members, brothers, sisters, cousins, all this kind of stuff? Because when you start looking for it, you really begin to find it. It's everywhere. At least it's everywhere that I have begun to look. Now, the thing to remember, guys, too, is that when it comes to dating in general and your dating lives, your personality, strengths, and weaknesses play a really, really big role. And when it comes to women having midlife crises, some personality types for guys are going to be able to handle this better than others. They're going to be much better at allowing a woman to grow up without leaving him, without the chaos, than other personality types. I think it's really powerful to understand who you are as a man and what your strengths and weaknesses are, because it allows you to work around your identity as a man. And oftentimes, I reckon, prevent and dampen your own midlife crisis as that starts to loom. I've got a dating personality test, which I highly recommend you check out. It's free to take, and it looks at 16 different parts of your personality as a man. It's very comprehensive. It's going to take you about 20 minutes to complete, but I highly recommend it for any guy who really wants to understand himself from a deep level. Now, this isn't a fake personality test. This is based on really solid scientific research. So it's not like a frivolous test. This is a very serious one that's going to tell you important information about who you are. I'll throw a link up here or down in the comments below so you can check it out too. Guys, I'd love to know what you think about today's video. Has it explained some problems that you've had in your life? I'd love to hear about it. As always, if you liked this video, don't forget to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And of course, check out some of my other videos over here if you like this one. Odds are you're going to like some of those as well. As always, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.